Folks, Biden and the Democrats lied to us for years. They told us we needed legislation to fix the issues that the Democrats created, and President Trump put it well. We didn't need legislation. All we needed was a new president. President Trump and his administration have been humming along these first 2 months, and since it's the first two, today is the 60th day that Trump is in office, we're going to take a look back at the mess that the Democrats refuse to clean up. But if you're new here, drop down below, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you never miss another video from us again in the future. Now, where else to start but immigration? It's like that is specifically what Trump was talking about when it came to we didn't need legislation, we needed a new president. So as you can see here, this is the full year or the full month of February since 2017 border encounters at the southern border. As you see during President Trump's administration, 18, 26,000, 66,000 it jumped up to, and then back down to 30,000 in February. Under Biden, 97,000, which his first year would be the lowest it would be during his entire presidency. 160,000, 130,000, 140,000, and then February 2025 comes along. And what changed? What changed? We got a president with a set of balls. That's what we got. Border encounters have dropped since President Trump came into office, one of the lowest months we have had in the 21st century. We've also seen the rollout of the largest deportation operation in American history. If there are violent illegal immigrants in the country, they will be deported. And officials that try to stop federal law enforcement officers from doing their job will be prosecuted. On top of the lower border encounters, President Trump also used the threat of tariffs with Mexico and Canada to get each country to deploy 10,000 troops to their respective border with the United States, along, may I add, with Canada investing over $1 billion to secure the northern border. Whether it's in technology, it's not just physical barriers, it is technology, an ability to work with the United States government, Customs and Border Patrols to make sure, and ICE immigration custody enforcement to make sure that both countries are communicating on what's going on. All while Democrats have to sit there and think about what they did. Go sit in the corner like the child you are. You're in timeout. You're done. Think about what you did. The president already had the authority to stop illegal migration. The issue is that Biden wanted millions of illegal immigrants to come here. Biden and the Democrats, I should say, wanted millions and millions and millions of illegal immigrants to come here. Because I have a dirty little secret for you. Here's the dirty little secret about the Democrats. This is why the Democrats wanted to ship millions of illegal immigrants into the United States every year during the Biden administration. As we know, every 10 years in the United States, the U.S. conducts a census, and that will be happening again in 2030. Under the rules in the constitutions, it says, quote, all persons, regardless of legal status, is counted in the census. All persons is what is in there. All persons, regardless of legal status, are counted in the census. Which means if you have an illegal immigrant here, they would then be counted in the census, and the census then is used to properly adjust electoral college votes and House seats from states, if there's population shifts, as you can see, away from California, away from New York towards Florida, Texas, Arizona, Utah, and Idaho, well, then they're going to be given more representation in Congress, more representation in the electoral college. And like we said, based on the current trends, states like California and New York are losing electoral votes, and states like Florida and Texas will be gaining them, which would tilt the electoral map in favor of the GOP for the next decade. And if Democrats got what they wanted in bringing over 10 million illegal immigrants into the country, and that's just the official number that the government puts out. So I'm almost positive, I am positive there are plenty more people who slip through unnoticed. The Democrats wanted to give these 10 million immigrants, illegal immigrants, and what they put it under the guise of border security bill. They wanted to, under the guise of a border security bill, give 10 million illegal migrants citizenship, amnesty, overnight with the stroke of a pen, which would overnight become a huge, huge part of the Democrat base. And if that didn't work, at least all of the illegal immigrants would be here in the country, and then theoretically, they would count in the census, which could balance out the huge gains for the GOP in strongholds like Florida and Texas. And if you think, well, liberals are leaving states like California, they're leaving states like New York, and they're going to places like Texas and Florida, and they're bringing their policies with them. Wrong. Try again. we're going to look at the 2020 election and the 2024 election. In 2020, we're going to look at the two states, Texas and Florida. President Trump won Texas by, what is that, 5.5 points? He won Florida by like 3.5. So 5.5 and 3.5 points he won the state by in 2020. In 24, President Trump won Texas by 14 points. He won Florida by 13 points. This is insane. 14 points and 13 points respectively. 1.5 million vote lead here. Almost a 1.5 million vote advantage here in Florida. So if you think that it's just liberals leaving California and New York, coming to Texas, Florida, and then voting the way they used to vote, you're just wrong. Because otherwise, the blue Texas dream would still be alive. And it's not. It's dead. Texas is not a blue state. Florida is not a blue state. Now, granted, are there some liberals who are leaving and voted in the same way? Of course there are, because they're stupid as all get out. They're have the intellect of a squirrel. They have the intellect of a mentally retarded child. You really hate to say something like that, but these people are not smart people. The policies you voted for caused a horrible, horrible crisis in California and New York. And now you're going to come to a state that knows what the hell they're doing and then vote the same way you used to? Get the hell out. We don't want you. We do not want you. But luckily, we have people, conservatives, leaving. It's like, just look at what Elon Musk lived in California. He left. Joe Rogan, California, left. Ben Shapiro, California, left. And what did they do? They moved all of their company headquarters out of the state too. So it's not just people that are leaving. It's corporations and businesses that are leaving because it is not a business-friendly state. And the reality is with less people, they then have to squeeze more juice out of the base of people that they have there. And folks, that is the dirty little secret that the left does not want you to know about. They don't. Now, another area that is worth highlighting 100% is the Ukraine-Russia situation. The war. Russia invaded Ukraine. This is what happened. And let's just take a look right up here. The reality is President Trump has made it very clear that he does not want the U.S. military to be involved in disputes that the U.S. does not have a vested interest in. But that does not mean he's not going to use the power of the office of the leader of the free world to end disputes or wars throughout the world. He has made it his goal crystal clear. Stop people from dying. I want to stop the death and destruction. And he is leveraging his deal-making ability to stop this war. Something that Biden and the Democrats did not have the courage to do. Biden's fatal mistake was that he did not clearly define what or when the end of the war would come. He basically told Ukraine, we're going to give you as much money as you need to repel Russia's invasion with no off-ramp, with no set end to the war. And I get it. You can't just say, okay, on this day the war's going to end. And that's not what I'm saying. It is at what point is it not worth anymore? At what point is it not worth thousands of lives being lost every day? At what point do we need to force Ukraine and Russia to the table and get them to make a deal? At what point do we get there? Because that's the reality. If the Ukraine wants the United States to fund them and to make sure that they don't lose their entire country, because the reality is that Ukraine would have been gone without the United States and Europe, would have been gone in a couple weeks. Biden did not have an off-ramp. His plan was flawed from the get-go. There was not an off-ramp. And President Trump has taken the exact opposite approach. He is forging, and like we said, Biden basically stopped all relations that they had with Russia. Basically cut them out, which, obviously, Putin is a dictator. He's a terrible, horrible human being. There's no doubt about that. But here's the reality. Trump has taken a different approach to this, and he's forging a relationship with President Putin to end this war. He's not forging a relationship because he wants to know Putin personally. He's doing this because it is his job as the leader of the free world to end this war. And as of now, Trump has got both countries to come to the deal and to the table and get Russia to agree to a ceasefire against any energy infrastructure in Ukraine. And the reality is that there are going to be land concessions in this. And Ukraine's not going to be thrilled about it, but ultimately they're going to have to give up part of their land. That is how the world has worked for all of human history. Geographical places throughout the world have been conquered many times over again. Many, many times. This is how it works. Be lucky that the United States and Europe has been here to help maintain what part of Ukraine you have left. And Trump's approach is not about endless handouts. We're not going to write a blank check to you until you decide that you don't want to fight anymore. It's about ending the war. That is the goal. Not, you have to, it's not just to deter Russia, it's to end the war. And if he's also able to bring lasting peace to the region, it will solidify him as a peacemaker. Look what he did with the Abraham Accords. If Trump would have got reelected in 2020, he for sure would have got Saudi Arabia to come into the Abraham Accords. But talking about deals, open economic relations with Israel, with these Arab states that we have not seen something like this before. It hasn't been since 1979 with Iran when they had any relations with Israel. And the last thing that you have to hit on, where all we needed was a new president. The biggest theme you can take away from the Trump administration right now is common sense. So much of the government has been returned, even just from a branding standpoint, how they've branded it. It takes time to actually go through the federal government, the bureaucracy, and root out all this just radical nonsense that's going on. But they are branding that. This is what they're doing. It is common sense. Women do, like, Trump immediately erased Biden's rewrite of Title IX that basically turned sex into sexual, it turned the definition of sex within inside of Title IX into basically their someone's gender identity. How do they identify? It doesn't have to do with the biological realities of their body. It's about how they feel on the inside, which would be one of the most flawed laws that we have on the books, or rules, protections that we have on the books, which could have forced school districts to allow mentally ill young men who want to dress as women to use women's locker rooms, women's amenities, women's locker rooms, bathrooms, sports teams, or risk losing federal funding. You look at what's going on with DEI. Now, and there's one thing I want to address with DEI. You talk about it. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Do we want diversity? Of course we want diversity. Do we want equity? Maybe, yeah. No, you don't. Because equity, by definition, is everyone has the same result. Equity. I'm all about equality. I'm all equality of opportunity. I'm all, but ultimately, we live in a flawed world where there cannot be equity or equality of everything. And inclusion, I'm not against inclusion of many different types of people, different ways of thinking, but ultimately in practice, DEI is not that. DEI is this radical push from Democrats, from liberals, to advance people based on basically all issues except their merit. They look at quotas. We need more representation of black people. Well, or a different minority group. Why should the race of someone be the determining factor? If you're applying for a job, why should race have anything to do with it? It's like DEI is about as racist as you can get. It's like the opposite of Jim Crow, basically. They're just trying to do it to white people now. Jim Crow wasn't right, and neither is DEI. And President Trump has returned the U.S. to a merit-based system. You're going to lose federal funds if you do not go through a merit-based system. You cannot discriminate on the basis of sex, sexual orientation, race, religion. You can't. You talk about the government, the Department of Government Efficiency, what they've done like with USAID, USAID. It is insane the amount of fraud that we've uncovered with USAID. We're going to shut that entire thing down. Obviously, do we still need to help out other countries? Of course, because here's the reality. There is going to be a void left behind. And either the United States is going to fill that void or China is going to fill that void. Now, having more targeted forms of aid going to these countries, not aid that goes to a nonprofit, which, after it goes through for every dollar we send to another country and it goes through the bureaucratic rings, and only let's say 40 or 30 cents of that dollar actually turn into actual aid. The rest of it is administrative cost and, paying for executives and board members and all the stuff that goes along with it. You want to talk about deregulation. A lot of people don't know this, but when Trump came into office in the insurance industry, there was a huge rule that would have changed how lead aggregators are able to source their information. Came in, done for. You talk about energy. They're trying to do everything everything the United States can to increase energy output, stop the deregulation, stop the bureaucratic red tape. And it's all about America first and a smaller government. America first, not America alone, but also not America last. And a smaller federal government. That is what it's all about. We need a smaller footprint in the federal government. If it's not in the Constitution, 10th Amendment, if it's not in the Constitution, it's up to the states to deal with it. We need to send education back to the states. 100%. This is what needs to happen. It's what absolutely needs to happen. But as we know, all we needed was a new president. All we needed. Don't buy into the liberal BS. All we needed was a new president. So that's going to wrap things up for today, folks. We will catch you next time.